thank you all for making today's webinar. I've been in the project management office space for a long time, nearly 20 years as a practitioner and another 15 years on top of that as someone who's helped organizations with their PMOs. And of all the topics that I've discussed with PMOs and leadership teams, this is without a doubt my most favorite topic because it's the most beneficial. Also, it's one of the least talked about topics. So today we're going to talk about the PMO Mandate Maturity in terms of the 5 levels of the PMO Mandate Maturity Model that I have for you, and I hope you will enjoy it very much. You see the agenda? I'll talk briefly about why we even need to talk about PMO Mandate Maturity, what it is. And after going through the 5 levels of PMO Mandate Maturity, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about techniques for ensuring a PMO mandate. And I want to give you some feedback that I've had over the years, and most significantly that I've had recently, on what executives, leadership team members, and PMO managers think about the PMO Mandate Maturity Model as a concept, as something to be thoughtful of and to spend some time working on. So without further ado, let's get started. Why PMO Mandate Maturity? Well, in the opinion of many people, and I agree with these people, we are out of balance. There's far too much focus on the means to the ends, as you can see depicted in this balance scale, where we turn our attention to PMO practices, such as processes and methodologies, perhaps tools, or PMO reporting. Make no mistake about it. These things are a means to an end. But the ends to be achieved is also quite important. And that's what I refer to as the PMO mandate. The ends to be achieved of the PMO, the purpose of the PMO, the assessed value of successfully achieving that purpose, and measures that serve as success along the way of fulfilling the PMO mandate. If your organization is doing a good job of this PMO mandate, then give yourselves a pat on the back. If you're struggling or not even doing any job at all, that's okay. That's something that is very, very common. Many organizations start a PMO, and though there may be some initial lip service to the purpose of the PMO, no sooner than the PMO gets started than the means to the ends take over. The cart, in essence, is put before the horse. This is a PMO mandate, PMO practices magic quadrant, if you will, that I like to show, that talks about the journey, if you will, of a typical organization that starts a PMO. I normally use a build slide technique, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to show you the entire journey right away and talk you right through it. So when an organization starts out, a good way to think about the PMO mandate and PMO practices is to plot out in a 2x2 grid like you see here, where we have PMO practices as the horizontal axis. Are they established? Are they not established? And then we have on the y-axis the PMO mandate. Is it established really, really well, or is it not established at all? And what you see here is most organizations, when they start a PMO, there may be some lip service to the purpose of the PMO, but quite frankly, there's such a rush to get things going that phase 1 of the PMO, we just rush out of the gate with a PPTT PMO model. You might ask, what's a PPTT PMO model? And if you know this in advance, congratulations. PPTT is what I refer to as people, process, tools, and let's throw in some training. Far too often, people have a misguided view of the purpose of the PMO, and they start right away developing a methodology, implementing the tool, staffing the organization, without first truly establishing the purpose of the PMO. Now this phase 1, for most organizations, you can spend 6 months or a year in this phase. But at some point in time, you'll complete this particular phase, and you'll be ready to go to phase 2. And you'll notice there's a rest in peace headstone because this is typically when the honeymoon period of the PMO is over. Everyone is frustrated with PMO. The leadership team is unhappy. The PMO manager is replaced and a new PMO manager is brought in. And what happens? At this point in time, do we take time to understand and discuss and determine the PMO mandate? Typically not, because that new PMO manager rushes right into what I call the Phase 2 QWBS. What's QWBS? Quick wins, buy-in, and support. Since the leadership team and everybody's unhappy with the PMO, let's establish some quick wins and get back some of that support that we lost. So we'll focus on quick wins, buy-in, and support. And as you notice, we keep progressing to the right in terms of establishing PMO practices, but we're really not progressing up in terms of determining what's the purpose of the PMO, what's the value of achieving that purpose, what are the specific measurements that will serve as fulfillment of that mandate. Well, Phase 2 runs its course, maybe another 6 months, maybe a year, and it's not too hard to identify some quick wins, promote those quick wins, and to trick people into temporarily being happy with their PMO. And that will get us a new bite of the apple, a third lease on our life, Phase 3. And what do we do with this new bite of the apple? Do we take the time to really work with the leadership team on the purpose of the PMO and the value that they want to get out of their PMO? Typically not. Phase 3 is what I call the OPMM phase. That's where we focus on organizational project management maturity. Let's improve our best practices as if that's what we need to do. We have no idea the purpose, the means to the ends to be achieved, but let's improve the means to the ends. It's not difficult to bring in a consultant to do a OPM assessment or to do it ourselves and to get better things. But for most organizations, that's a lot like practicing your tennis serve because tomorrow you're going to play golf. It makes no sense at this point in the PMO to consider organizational project management maturity. And this typically runs its course. Time and money is spent, and though people might be a little bit smarter, there's really no significant improvement in the PMO. And this gets us to Phase 4. And by the way, this is also a point in time where we lose another PMO manager. So now we're on our third PMO manager. In Phase 4, we get a different kind of PMO manager, maybe a business kind of a person, maybe a project manager that is business-oriented or a PMO manager that's business-oriented. And in this phase, it's all about NGVD, the Phase 4 NGVD. This is where the PMO seeks to be the next generation value-driven PMO. And friends, there's all sorts of presentations that, in my opinion, put the cart before the horse with what a next generation value-driven PMO should do. There's far too much talking, far too much telling, not enough listening. But in the next generation value-driven PMO phase, this is where the PMO manager may say, that overly burdensome methodology, you don't have to follow every process. You don't have to follow every template. You can take some shortcuts if that will help you get value. So there's a little bit of focus on value, and that's really good. We're going up. We're getting higher up in this quadrant, in this PMO mandate, PMO practices quadrant. But we're not nearly where we should be because we still don't have a properly determined PMO mandate. But we are starting to speak the language of business, and we are becoming a little bit more strategic. And then someone comes up with the idea for Phase 5, which is I call the SPMO, the strategic PMO. In fact, there's the concept and thought that if a PMO is going to be of value, it should report high up in the organization. The higher up, the better. The lower, the worse. Mind you, we still haven't determined a proper PMO mandate, but we're all too happy to put a different type of PMO cart ahead of the horse. Well, some things may change in this SPMO model, but typically what happens is it runs its course well, and at some point in time, we finally arrive at the business-driven PMO where we first establish the PMO mandate, and we then, and only after establishing the PMO mandate, turn our attention to the practices that help us achieve that mandate. This is quite frankly where we should have been all along, because everything